Hi, everyone, and welcome to another lesson in Tanya. We just completed chapter 47. We're holding on chapter 48. Just a reminder, we spoke in chapter 48 about the love that can be awakened between a human being and God should be a simple one, not deep contemplation, lots of intelligence, just contemplating the fact that God, the King, the Lord himself, without appointing agents and emissaries, went down to a dunghill, found a homeless person who had no rights, took him out, bathed him, washed him, cleaned him, and gave him access to the palace and all its whatever else is around, and is always available to that person. How thankful the person should be. Therefore, we must be appreciative for everything God gave us. We discovered that if I show God love, God will return back love to me, just like when I look at the mirror or in the water. When I put myself down and reflect a face, the face will reflect exactly the way I am. If I see stain on the face in the water in the mirror, there is no sense in cleaning the mirror, but rather cleaning my face. And this ties very well with this week's Torah portion, because according to many, the purpose of the spies, shlach, coming back with bad news, bad report, was they refused to realize that they are the source of the problem. Instead of cleaning their faces, they were looking for God to change. It's just like, according to some commentators, looking in the mirror, and when you see stain, you figure the mirror must be dirty. We'll clean up. There is a famous story about a couple moved into an apartment and a house, and they noticed that always the women from next door, she would hang up clothes to dry them on a clothesline. And one day the wife turns to the husband and says, the neighbor don't care to clean their clothes. They always hang to dry clothing that are very filthy until today. But today, for a change, I see everything is clean. The shirts, the underwear, the undershirt, the pants, the dresses. And the husband turned to his wife and says, no, it's nothing to do with the clothes. Our window was stained. I just cleaned up the window last night. So it's not the neighbor's washing machine not doing a good job. It's cleaning up your windows. You hear that, Ali? It goes very deep. But back to our discussion. If I look at the mirror and show happy face, God shows happy face. God wants me to experience what I choose. So there might be people who suffer greatly. There might be people who are deprived of great amenities that we all enjoy. If they choose to be happy, God will give them many reasons to be happy. And on the other hand, some people who have everything a person can dream of, and if they choose not to be happy, they will find all the reasons not to be happy. And the reason is because God will reflect back the way the person chooses. That's what...
Thank God.
Thank God is right. Now, therefore, if I show love towards God, God will reflect back love towards me. This was until now. We're beginning to study chapter 48. I need you to brace yourself. Chapter 48 in letters, in Hebrew letters, what are the letters for the chapter? Anyone? Mem Chet. Mem is 40, Chet is 8. What does the letters Mem Chet make? What word can you read if I spell mem and chet? Moach. What is moach? Intelligent. This chapter is the essence of intelligence, the deepest part of the Tanya. We are going to talk about 3 general concepts. The Rebbe will dissect them very, very deep, and some question why it belongs to Tanya. And the only reason is because it will lead us to chapter 49, where once we understand what the Rabbi wants to teach us, it will enable us to love God much deeper than before. So 48 is an introduction to 49. However, 48 not only is deeper than 49, it's deeper than any chapter of the Tanya. We are going to talk about Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof translates into light, which is endless, no end. Or is light, Ein is with no, that does not. Sof, Sof is end. Tchila is start, Sof is end. Or Ein Sof, representing, calling God's light, infinite light, light without end. That's the first. The second part we're going to talk about is tzimtzum. Tzimtzum is contraction. The idea of contraction will be discussed here at great length. And the third one is sovev. Sovev kolalmin, we spoke about in briefly. This time we're going to go in deeper into the idea of sovev and circling or encompassing all of creation from beginning to the end. So if we are to pay attention, we will cover again Or Ein Sof, light, God's infinite light that has no end, boundless. The second would be the universe, which is very limited. The third is tzimtzum, contraction to creating the universes. And the fourth is sovev. These are the 3. Stick to those 3. The fourth one would be this universe, but it's within the tzimtzum. We'll talk about the universe. So let's just start a little bit. I'm asking you a question. I need you to use your brains because I want you to participate in the class. Not just I teach and you the students. I want all of us to participate. If I were to ask you, you have to. Yes, you have to. By order. If I were to ask you, anything in this universe which is infinite, has no limitations, is there anything that comes through your mind? Light. Space. What do you mean? There is outer space. Space is limited.
No. Galaxy.
The Milky Way, they say there is thousands of Milky Ways, but they all have a limit.
God.
I'm talking about in this universe. I asked you about this universe. Okay, you won. Anything else? So actually, Herman says space. I did not agree, but then he changed to galaxies. I would say stars. Stars. They don't know. They say there are billions and billions and billions of stars without, we can't even reach. It's infinite. So that's what you're referring to, I assume.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else?
God is infinite.
Water.
Air. Air.
Air.
Infinite.
It's in the atmosphere.
Yeah, but
Okay.
water is finite.
Water is finite? I'm asking you. Okay. Mind. Yes. What about sand, dirt, earth?
Ideas.
Ideas is Linda's point about mind.
Earth is not, Earth is a space.
My head.
It's there, it's not infinite.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you did not come up with the following.
Forgot.
No, I did not. I don't know how to say it in English. Relax. Nuclear power. Nuclear power that powers power plants, there is no limit. It can infuse power endlessly, forever. Ali, do you understand that?
That's as close as I would bring. Not infinite, but it still needs material.
But it's more than sand and air and water. The human mind,
Soul,
but the soul
the idea, yeah.
giving birth is the power of infinite. I'll show it you a story. Giving birth.
Chlorophyll.
Seeds of a plant that can grow a tree, and that tree will recreate endless fruits with seeds, which each one can recreate endless trees with fruits, right? So when I say the power to give birth, it's not in the human only, it's with animals and it's with the vegetation,
Reproduction.
with the plants.
Reproduction.
That's what I was talking about. But I said it's not only with reproduction of a human, by human beings. I'm talking about the trees.
Yeah, the whole, whatever.
Any category, correct.
Some kind.
Well, water do not generate themselves, rocks do not, soil does not. Power plant, the amount of energy it produces is endless. It can regenerate energy forever, no end. The power of giving birth is endless.
That's life. Are you saying that life is that?
I say giving birth to a human being.
So where are we going with all this?
Good. Where are we going with all of this? It is everything shared, as was objected by Ali, are not true infinite. They are without measure, they are without numbers, but they do come to an end. They can end. At any given moment, it can end. In other words, when I tell you there is endless stars or galaxies, it's not because there is no limit, no end. It's just that we ran out of numbers. But if I were to invent new numbers, more digits, we can continue counting until we reach the end. If I told you soil, how many grains of dirt there is on Earth? People would say endless. There is no limit. The reason is because we don't have proper tools to measure. But there will be, I'm pretty sure there will be a time where we can come to an exact number. Same is about water. Same is about every part of the universe.
Even light,
Even light.
doesn't it reproduce every day, there's no limit.
Light.
Yeah.
The stars burn.
We just don't see all the time. Zero.
Stars burn out.
Stars burn out.
Right.
So it's not endless.
But light is. It doesn't shut itself off. We just don't see it. It's all the time.
What?
It's light. Light.
Is this a concept that God has to keep regenerating?
No doubt,
That
yes.
Has to keep things going.
Yes.
Otherwise, anytime you want to. Okay, so.
Flip the switch. So the idea of infinite, what that we know, is based on our measures. For me, the amount of grains of dirt, of soil that exist, I call it infinite simply because I don't know how much, but it's finite. The amount of stars, the amount of water, how much water there is beneath the ocean, beneath the earth, we don't know, but there must be a limit. There is a limit, a finite number. It's just we don't know how much it is, no matter how advanced we are. Perhaps one day we will be able to. When we are going to speak about infinite from God's point of view, it's on a whole different scale. And when we say infinite, it's truly infinite, that the number one and the number million are close to the end equally. So if I tell you there is infinite number of galaxies, the closer I get, the more I count, the closer I get to the solution. I will be able to, if not me, my children, my grandchildren, maybe in 100 years, they will be able to create a machine, a telescope that will be able to reach. And the computer, the AI itself will be able to generate the numbers. When we talk about Ein Sof, infinite, we are speaking about the distance between one to the end is equally to for 10 million to the end. Again, let me just explain. If I told you numbers are finite because we created them. They are finite because we have a set numbers.
No, they go forever.
You sure? Okay.
I always thought that Hashem was Ein Sof.
That's what we're talking about.
Is Ein Sof?
Hashem is not Ein Sof or Ein Sof. The light that emanated from Hashem is Ein Sof. And you pointed out a very powerful point that I wanted to share this time. Why do we call it Ein Sof, not Ein Atchala? Why do we say end, no end? Why don't we say does not have a beginning? Because God does not have a beginning. It is far, far greater than no end. The light of God is Ein Sof, has no end, but does have a beginning. The start is from God. God himself cannot be called Ein Sof. God himself is called no beginning. We call it Or Ein Sof, light of infinite. Infinite here, the true translation would be with no end. Harry, was that above your pay grade?
I always think that Ein Sof is Hashem.
Or Ein Sof. We always say Or Ein Sof, not Ein Sof. As I said, for God, it's not Ein Sof, it's Ein Atchala. It's no start. For the light, it's Ein Sof, no end. Why? Because there is a beginning. Numbers, now I'll answer you numbers. Numbers are finite. You know how I know? There is endless numbers, but does not make them infinite. Because there is a start. You have to start from somewhere. You got to start from zero. There is nothing before zero. Negative is not a number. It's an imagination. I cannot say I have negative cans here. Either I have 0, or I have 5, or I have 10. I cannot say I have negative 5 cans here. The negative is for math purpose. But that's not, the true numbers are finite. In addition, and this is the point I want to make, comparing 1 to 1,000,000, there is a value. 1 has a value even compared to 100 million. You know why? Because 100 million are made out of 100 million singles, 100 millions. What if I took 1 out of them? It's not 100 million anymore. It's 999,99,99,99. The number, the figure, they've changed. So it may be vast, the distance between 1 to 100 millions, but there is a relationship. Because if that number 1 or that number 5 is gone, the outcome is not 100 million, it will be different. What happens if I have an infinite resource, something which is infinite? Then if I remove 1, a unit or 5 units, it didn't change the end results. It didn't change the amount. If I told you that I have a river that will flow and keep giving continuous, removing a bucket of water out of that river does not diminish the amount that the river has, because it doesn't have an end. There's no end. So take 1, take 1,000,000, you didn't change anything. It's still infinite. If the river has 50,000 buckets and I took one cup of 10 ounces, it's not 50,000 buckets anymore. It's 49,999 buckets and 3/4. Ali, do you agree, understand?
We'll leave this one alone.
Good.
That's the first thing I want you to get tonight. Nothing in this universe is Ein Sof because we don't have the end of it. We don't see the end of it, like numbers, like galaxies, I say even soil and water. It's just because we don't see the end of it, but it is finite because it's contained within our universe, within our atmosphere. It must exist with an end. When I talk about true Ein Sof, it's God's light that emanated from God, which will go forever without any limitations. We will then talk about tzimtzum, that if that were to create a universe, the universe will have endless boundaries, no boundaries, and therefore I'll never get tired, I'll never stop working, I'll never need to get dressed or take off clothes, because everything is infinite. The universe, as we know, must have a finite boundaries in every aspect, and therefore God had to contract that light in order for him to create the universe. But that Or Ein Sof is called Sovev. What is Sovev? We're going to talk about in details. Hopefully, you'll start tonight. All I'm going to say is the idea that I've discovered today. Sovev is encircling. Saviv means around, all around. Sovev means all encircling. We use the term encompasses, all encompassing. What happened to the center point in a circle? The distance between that center to any other point in the circle is equal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's the idea of Sovev. Sovev, when I say all encompassing or encircling, meaning the distance between that light, godliness, and me, and the cat, and the building, and the non-Jew, and the animals are equally the same. We all are all-encompassing. So my closeness to God is no different than the chair, no different than the water, no different than the clouds, no different than anything else. We call it Soivev. That's why I call it Soivev, all-encompassing. Memale is infinite, is finite. Memale is filling up according to each one would get according to their level. But we're not talking about Memale, we talk about Soivev. Soivev is all-encompassing, and the reason it's called Soivev, all-encompassing, all-circling, is because the distance between that Or Ein Sof and the created beings, no matter what it might be, a gold nugget, a diamond, a human, an animal, are all equally the same. Did I make myself clear, Ali?
We're all in the center, so
That's it.
the thing circles.
So no matter where you go, no matter from what point you go, you're always at the same distance. Yes, Ari?
We're all equal, what makes us different?
Memale, the second one.
Second was tzimtzum.
Yeah, that's a simple.
Sovev is the tzimtzum. Memale is a tzimtzum of the sovev, is the second one.
Okay.
Got that, Leon?
So we're going to talk about, we are going to talk about before tzimtzum. I'm advancing, but this way, when you hear it, when we read, it should not be the first time. So it's absorbed a little deeper. When we hear about tzimtzum, contraction, in order for contraction to exist, it means God removed himself. Let's use figurative images. Darkness. There was God everywhere, now there is no God. There is a God, but God hide himself, it's all dark. And I want to show you a movie in 50 years ago, not today. So we have this, the wall, I have a projector, thank you, and I have what? The film that runs 30, the reel, right, the reel. So I put the reels right in front of the light. Before I connect the reel, I project the light into the wall. That's soivev. It's all one. It's one light. It brings light to the room. But then I connect the reel. The reel will start rolling, and then you see a horse running over a mountain. That's memale. Each frame is unique with its purpose and the exact position. You cannot replace one frame with another frame. Otherwise, you won't see the movie. You won't enjoy the movie. Ali, do you understand that? What is the most important? What's the crucial part in order for me to enjoy the movie? Is it the light or is it the frames, the reel?
Both.
Thank you. You must have both. Can you have one without the other? No.
Nothing there.
You won't see a movie, right?
Right.
If you don't have the light, the reel have no value. If you don't have the reel, you have a dead light. You didn't see your grandfather riding a horse. The only way for it, there are two components that each is very different. The light is equally all around. It has to be equally the same for the first frame, the 1,000th frame, and 1,000,000th frame. It's all, we call it infinite, because it has to be there equally at the same length, same distance, all the time. If you shrink the light, you move it to the right, left, up, down, you won't see the photo. The photo is not going to show. The memale part is the reel. The reel, if it's not running and each frame is shown at the specific crucial nanosecond, you won't be able to enjoy the movie. Everybody will ask for the money back, because that's what makes it come alive. The light itself is not going to make any image here. I think I spent too much time on this, but the idea is that there are other examples, but this is an idea to understand memale and sovev, as we're going to discover. We're going to concentrate on sovev today. And the reason is because in chapter 48, the Rebbe wants us to see how much God went through to connect to us. How far had he gone just to create us so we have a free choice? And the great pleasure is for God to see that we are happy serving God. So it's not about my success, if I were to look at it. My success, when I woke up in the morning and I said, thank you, God, for giving me a gift called the day, is not making a lot of money. It's not making a lot of friends. It's not having a healthy day without headaches, because that's not the case every day. My great, great appreciation is the ability to make God happy. My success is when I woke up this morning and I say, God, you put me here, thank you. I will put my efforts to make you happy. There is nothing that can prevent us from doing so. Only slaves who don't have the ability. And there is nothing that can motivate us in this universe other than just realizing that the least we can do is reciprocate God for everything He does for us.
Hasn't God made you happy by waking you up, by giving you back the soul? He's made you happy first.
Of course, but I'm sharing with you that it should influence the rest of the day, realizing that's my purpose for the whole day. Everything else is secondary. I should be successful, I should make friends, I should have money, I should enjoy health, all that, but it's secondary. The real reason I should be, I'm sorry. The real reason I should be here is because God wants me to be happy. And when I'm happy, God is happy. We will see how far God went through to bring us that gift called life, to bring us to the ability to have the ability to be happy.
God gave no prophecy to prophets unless they were in a happy mood.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So Harry pointed out that happiness is the prerequisite to be connecting to God through prophecy. Thank you. In addition, we are about to study the portion of Ki Tavo in about 2.5 months, the week before Rosh Hashanah, which is my Bar Mitzvah portion. And in it, there are 98 curses. You read 98 curses. In the middle, God says, you know why all that will befall upon you? That mothers will eat the flesh of their own children, that 5 enemies will chase 100 of the Jewish people, that we will plow, plant, and water, and then the enemy will eat the crops of our toil. There are many, many curses there. You know, that we will be sold as slaves and no one would want to purchase us. There are many, many stories. Why? Tachat asher lo avata et Hashem besimcha ubetuv levav. Because you served God with no joy.
No.
Joy. As the Hasidim say, sadness is no sin, but it's worse than any sin written in the Torah. No sin can lower the person and drive him away from God like depression, like sadness. That's why there is no sin to be sad. However, there are many, many curses, 98 curses. In the middle, God says all that is not because you didn't pray, not because you didn't keep Shabbat, not because you didn't keep kosher, but because you serve God out of necessity, or because you're forced to, because you fear. It says, "Tachat asher lo avat Hashem Elokecha b'simcha uvetuv levav," with joy and a gladness of the heart. That's what it says in the Torah. So therefore, when we look here and see how far God is going through, it will help us in chapter 49 to learn to be very appreciative and to love God every time, every moment we have. Any questions? Okay, now let's go.
Very good question. Never mind. Keep on going.
Can I keep going?
Please.
I got Herman's permission. Chapter 48, page 728. I'm going to read the introduction of the rabbi. Having previously explained that God showed his love for the Jewish people by taking them out of the physical servitude of Egypt, the Alter Rebbe concluded chapter 47 by describing the love God shows his people by releasing them from a spiritual dimension of Egypt's Egyptian bondage did we discuss that the Egyptian bondage is about servitude in our mental ability, thinking?
Yes, we did.
This spiritual exodus is daily manifest within all Jewish souls. It is natural, therefore, that Jews should reciprocate with love like the water that mirrors the face of the beholder, and thereby strive to overcome all obstacles that hinder their service of God. So the Rabbi is going to go through an entire chapter, which is the deepest chapter, just to talk about how far God has gone in order for us to be created. Says the Rebbe, contemplating the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof, the thinking person will come to the realization. By the way, every word of Tanya can be dissected. The Rabbi says the thinking person. The reason he says the thinking person, in the previous chapter, in chapter 47, he said every person. In other words, 47 is an idea for everyone to awaken their love for God. Here, you need to contemplate and meditate deeply about the ideas. We'll come to the realization that, as his name indicates, so is he. There is no end or limit to the finitude at all to the light and vitality that diffuse from his simple will, simple in the sense that it has no cause, nor it is subject to the limitations inherent in a immortal will. I will not go through every detail of Kabbalistic terminology here because it will take a very long time and very deep. All the Rabbi is saying is that anything that comes from Ein Sof or Ein Sof, the light of which is infinite, must be infinite. Because a child is born from parents, an animal or a tree from a tree, animals from animals. You cannot recreate something different than you don't have. The DNA, my DNA, is in the next generation. A tree's DNA is in the tree. So all Ein Sof, if he was to create a universe, the universe must be, all Ein Sof must be infinite, endless, and which is united with his essence and being in perfect unity. The light and vitality that emanate from God, in order that he create an animate finite world, are in no way similar to light and vitality as they are found within the created beings. Light that emanates from a created being is not limited by the capacity of the recipient. On the other hand, the luminary has no control over its power of illumination. Having been created as a luminary, I'm sure you understand everything I say. Having been created as luminary, it has no choice but to illuminate. Divine light, however, while possessing all the positive qualities of illumination as found in created luminaries, shares none of its deficiencies. They are: light emanates from the luminary only when the luminary desires that it to do so. The will of created beings likewise has strengths and weaknesses, though it chooses freely, it is by its very nature limited and restrictive. God's will, by contrast, while maintaining the positive attributes of mortal will, is encumbered by none of its limitations. His will to illuminate, for example, is unbounded, just as he himself is without limitation. What the Rabbi is saying is, light, if I flick the light, does it have a choice not to light up and share light around? The answer is no. It's the nature. Once I strike a match and light was created, the match will give light regardless. God's light, on the other hand, has the ability and choice to emanate light or to restrict. In other words, the nature or the rules that apply to light as we know do not apply to Or Ein Sof, to the light of the infinite. The light of the infinite, which emanates from the infinite, may not necessarily follow the same rule. So therefore, sometimes it will eliminate, sometimes it will give out light, sometimes it will contract and not give light. It is a very crucial point. Again, even though we call it light or Ein Sof, it is not close to the light as we know. It is similar to light as we know in the fact that it shines, it can ignite, it can bring vision, but none of the rules that apply to light as we know apply to the light of Ein Sof.
For the human, what's the limitation and soft of the life?
So the human has limitations for the light.
Yeah.
In other words, in this universe, God's Ein Sof has no limitation. That's why I call it Ein Sof. Ein Sof means endless, infinite. So this light is 4,000 lumina or 3,000, meaning it's so bright or brighter or less bright. Also, as far as I go, when I go over there, that light has no much influence. It's not as powerful. God's light not only can be controlled, that God decides it should shine or not, but it's infinite, meaning its power is endless, everywhere, all the time.
Controls the life.
He controls the light.
Okay.
Being infinite, God's light cannot give rise to created and finite beings unless it first undergone the series of self-limiting, self-concealing contractions known as tzimtzumim, as is now stated. Now the Rabbi is going to talk about tzimtzum. So we spoke about Or Ein Sof, the light that emanates from the infinite of God, which is infinite. However, it does not bound. It's not under the rules and regulations that light as we know it today, as we know it in our universe. It can be infinite, it can be contracted, it can be affecting one area and not another area. Had the world descended from the light of the blessed Ein Sof without contractions, but according to a gradual descent from grade to grade by means of cause and effect, the loftier level being the direct cause for the manifestation of the level immediately following it, such is the case with regards to thought and speech. That which a person speaks is first found within the thought. Thought is the cause and speech is the effect. Though thought is more spiritual than speech, the two levels stand in a certain proportion to each other in that, for example, both are composed of letters that form words. And so with every cause and effect relationship, the effect must partake of the characteristics of the cause. It would be impossible for a cause to bring into existence an effect which is infinitely removed from it. Did you understand that? It's simple. There is something called cause and effect. I'm sure Elizabeth understands. There's something called cause and effect. Cause and effect means if I step on a nail, the nail will enter my body and eventually I'll get, I'll need a tetanus shot, right? Why? Because there is bacteria in the nail, right? Simple as that. We call it cause and effect. If you want to be immune from bacteria, you need to have a shot. Simple as that. We call it cause and effect. If you speak disrespectful to your mom, I didn't say that.
I said.
But
You still feel it.
you can still feel it, okay? There will be an effect, right? That's called cause and effect. Cause and effect must have direct relationship. If there is disproportion, it doesn't work. It makes no sense. As a child, I was a rebellious child. And one time, I think I shared with you, one time, a teacher came and slapped me in the face very strongly and then punished me He says to me, there are 4 crimes you just committed. So for each one of them, I want to give you 100 times to write a sentence. I will never disrespect the teacher. I will never laugh in class. 4 different this. I came home crying. My father says to me, what happened? I said, the teacher has punished me disproportionately. He hates me. And my father says, no, he was from Russia before the Holocaust, and he had no children. Very, very special man. So after I come down, my father says to me, I'll see him in the afternoon service, Mincha and Mayim, I'll talk to him. And the teacher said, my father comes home and says, the teacher said he gave you what you deserve. And if you don't believe, he's ready to have an argument, a debate with you. I said, okay, because I told my father, I'm not going to class anymore. I'll run away. Anyway, this was Thursday. Saturday night, I never said that, huh? Saturday night, Shabbos afternoon, the teacher comes over to me in shul and says, I heard that you're not happy about the punishment I gave you Thursday afternoon. Saturday night, after Shabbat, you're welcome to come to my house with your father, and we'll have a debate. And we'll see if I gave you too much disproportion. Saturday night I walked in. The first thing, his wife, he was very old. His wife, right away, gave me a chocolate. Those days, a piece of chocolate was beyond. Anyway, so we sat down. So he said to me, you're the one who called, so to say, called the meeting. What do you have to say? So I said, look, I did this, but I got this, and I got more. So he said, look, the first one you got is for this one. I slapped you one time because you're laughing to this one. I slapped the second time. He came and he gave me 2 slaps, so really strong ones. And the second one, then I punish you 4 times, 4 different. So I started arguing. At the end, it turned out that I got 6 different punishments, and I should have gotten only 4. So the teacher says to me, you know what? You're right. You're right. This was a major shock. So first, I know today how smart the man was, because what he did was he wanted me to win so that I should behave. So he said, I'm willing to take away 200 writings, twice 100, on condition that you will conduct yourself properly in class. And I said, sure, because I've never been in history before that the child won over and made the teacher remove punishment. I remember I was walking on cloud 9. I walked into class on Sunday morning. I told everybody, you can't believe it. I don't have to do the punishment. Not all of it I have to do. And then at 2 o'clock when he came to teach, he said, no, we mentioned my name. Where is the write-ups? And he says, I want everybody to know. I told him 400, he has to do only 200. And with a smile, I walked over and I gave him the notes that I wrote the 200 times. When it's disproportionate, it doesn't make sense. It does not work that way. So if I have my heart feels deeply in love with somebody, it will express itself with action. If someone does not do, then he can say all he wants. I love you. I can't be without you. But it's only lip service. It's cheap. If someone is to feel something or say something, assuming they are not an idiot, there is a connection between the brains and the mouth. We call it cause and effect. If I am thinking about something and I express myself, it will come out organized. Because if there is no organizations, it means I didn't think about it. Did you understand what cause and effect is?
Chocolate didn't hurt.
Chocolate is
Didn't hurt.
it didn't hurt, no.
Is this relating action and reaction?
What?
Does that have anything to do with action and reaction?
Sometimes, not always. Sometimes the reaction is not a cause and effect because it's a reaction by somebody else. Cause and effect is when I have full control over it. If I call you names and you get angry and you slap me, is it cause and effect? You will say it's a cause and effect. I will say it's disproportionate. And we'll have a debate forever. Cause and effect is when I have control on both parts. Do you understand that? Ali, do you understand?
If I was listening, I would.
So you miss all the stories.
Yeah,
So if I were to cook something and I walk away and it got burned, it's cause and effect. I didn't pay attention to the fire. So it got overcooked. There is no chance for things to happen by themselves. You ask a child, how did it tear? Why you get a scratch here? I have no idea. It just happened. How many times? And you say to them, there is no such thing. There is a cause and effect. Says the Rebbe, if the universe were to be created, or the universes, by cause and effect, then it will reflect the cause, the source, the DNA. A tree, a guava, a mango is a cause and effect. The seed of a mango or a branch of a mango will create a mango tree. It will not create a tomato tree. The reason is there is a cause and effect. In today's world, it's much easier. The DNA. The mango contains some DNA only for mango, not tomatoes. You cannot have a banana produced from a mango tree because the DNA is for a mango. We call it cause and effect. If it's infinite light, the created being must be infinite as well. Therefore, if it was without control, meaning without God's desire and the ability to control the light, light is used as a metaphor, then the worlds that were created by the infinite light would have been infinite universes, infinite beings. You know what infinite being means? As I said, you never need to learn anything because you know everything. You never need to get to rest because you don't get tired. You're infinite. You have energy. There is no batteries. You're like the beanie. What do you call it? The energy bunny? You're the energy bunny. The energy bunny should learn from us. We cannot go on and you don't go to bed. The sun does not set because it's infinite. As soon as you have infinite, you have no different human beings. It's not a universe that we can imagine. It's like taking a canvas and you want to create something and you pour buckets, endless buckets of paint on the frame. It's impossible because the frame is finite and the paint that you throw, different colors, is infinite. It keeps pouring and pouring and pouring. You cannot create a human being on the canvas. You cannot create a horse on the canvas or a house or bricks. There is no such thing. In order for the universe to be created, the cause and effect had to have been totally different. We call it tzimtzum. Tzimtzum, contraction. Tzimtzum or contraction, it means that the DNA of the creator is not in the created being. So a child, a plant, a tree, possess the DNA of its parents, father, mother, etc. The universe does not have the DNA of God. Had the universe had the DNA of God, it would have been infinite. It will not exist. Therefore, there has to be a tzimtzum. It shows you what God went through. So first, he had to remove himself and allow for an infinite light to emanate. So he first have to remove himself. Figuratively, God is not possessing space, so he didn't have to move himself. But for this discussion, he had to remove. That's the way it's described in the Zohar. He had to remove himself, and then he allowed for one line of light. We will discuss in detail this figurative ideas because it's not as simple as I share with you. That light was infinite. We call it the Or Ein Sof, an infinite light. Why is it infinite? Because it was created by the Creator who is infinite, cause and effect. Now that light needs to create a universe. If that light were to create a universe, the universe would have the DNA of that infinite. It would be infinite. And if it would be infinite, I and you will not be here. Therefore, there had to be a contraction. What is a contraction? Removing the DNA, creating something not as a cause and effect. Did I make myself clear?
What?
I would like to read a little bit more. What? Yes, Harry.
Contraction. What? Contraction.
Okay, so that light contracted,
Then what would?
and something new was created. We call it yesh, something me'ayin, from nothing. What do you mean nothing? It's not from nothing, it's from infinite. But because this is finite, this finite compared to the infinite is nothing. As I told you, if I want to have a canvas and I want to be creative on a canvas and I have infinite amount of paint and I pour it on the canvas, there is nothing.
That's how the world was created.
That's the one, the way the world is created. That's the process for creating the universe. Yes.
Vessel, we have to have something to hold the light.
Just what? Yes, yesh me'ayin. The universe is a vessel that contains the light, but not that light, because that light, if it contains that same light, the vessel will blow up, because a vessel is measured, limited. The light is unlimited.
Necessary for a vessel.
No, for creating, a vessel is a container to hold that godliness. The vessel was created to contract the infinite, but it is not. In other words, I heard it from my teacher many times, many years back, and I use it from time to time. Cause and effect is a way for me to learn from what was created, where it came from. Tzimtzum, there is no way to know where it came from. Did you understand what I said? You understood? If I have a mango tree, I know that the mango tree came from a seed of a mango. If I am looking at the cactus, I know it came from a cactus tree. In other words, cause and effect. So if I'm speaking eloquently, it's because I was thinking. So cause and effect. By listening to me, you know what I was thinking. Right? There has to be a direct correlation, connection. Therefore, the effect will represent the cause. That's why parents are very embarrassed when the children misbehave, is because you say to the parents, so what do you care? It's your child, it's not you. Well, it's a reflection of who I am. It defines me. And we studied today in Talmud about parents cannot defend their children, but children can defend their parents. In other words, looking at the children, you can tell about the parents, not the other way around. But that's not the discussion for now. Back to cause and effect. In cause and effect, the effect will tell you about the cause. So if someone created a brilliant computer, that's the effect, the outcome. The cause was a brilliant human being. You can look at the product and say a brilliant man created it. Do you understand that? If there is no cause and effect, then by looking at the universe, you will never be able to trace the creator of the universe, because the DNA is not there. Not there meaning hiding, by the way, but for the ease of comprehension. So if I'm looking at the universe, prove me there is a God. If I can prove you there is a God, the universe would be endless, limitless, infinite, because God is infinite. If He created it, it must be an infinite universe. Therefore, cause and effect does not apply here, because the effect, the outcome will never reflect the cause, the source, the father, the mother, the root of everything. I hope I made myself clear.
How do you reconcile the godly soul?
We didn't get there yet.
Next.
We are starting. We just discovered Or Ein Sof, and we started talking about tzimtzum. Tzimtzum, contraction, that the contraction is a must in order for a universe as we experience to exist. Usually the descent goes cause and effect. Thinking, speaking, action. By the universe, if it would be a cause and effect, the universe will be endless, limitless.
How does it change the DNA?
What?
How did
it happen?
How does it work?
I don't know, and you don't know, because what we see in our universe is only cause and effect. We have no example of a creation that has no cause and effect to it. And therefore, it's very hard. You understand what I'm saying, Ali?
I'm still trying to figure out.
In other words, that's why the
The
rabbi said to us that it's called Or, light of infinite, but it's not like light as we know it. Light as we know it, can the light have a choice not to light up even though it's connected? No, unless the bulb is burnt. But if there is energy into that light, or I strike a match, can the fire decide not to emit light? No. We call it cause and effect. God created nature, and part of nature's rule is that when I strike a match, I will be able to produce light. All Ein Sof is different. God controls that light, and he can decide how much and where. Therefore, he decided that that light is the tool that creates a finite universe. It's not a cause and effect. It's yesh me'ayin. Yesh me'ayin means a complete tzimtzum, contraction. Is there an example of contraction in this universe? I am not aware of. But I just need you to understand what God needed to do in order for him to create the universe.
I understand the concept of just the filtering. If the light's too bright, you gotta make it less light so we can see.
I'm here to tell you that at the other side, the light is not the same, does not have the components of light. Because if it would have components of the light, it would be endless. The light that you know is finite. Therefore, it's bound by rules. So the light has no choice how much and when to shine. It does it all the times. It's part of nature's rules. The Or Ein Sof has no rules. Therefore, in order for it to light or to shine, is different than what we know as light that shines.
So we can contract into a level where it's finite.
Not it can, it did, it had to. Right. In other words, I know, by the way, a mango seed, a tree, a branch of a mango, it's called light because it can create another mango tree. That's what light is about. Light, you think we talk about flame, fire. No, light is anything that's creative. My brains is light, your brains is light. Well, I'm going to use trees. Can a mango tree, when you put a seed of the mango in the ground, have a choice whether to grow or not? The answer is absolutely not, because it follows rules. And the rule is when the nutrition of the ground in the ground for that seed, it will produce another tree. Comes God and says, he will produce a light. He can create a mango seed that can create a house. We'll build a house. In other words, the power to produce, to create, is endless, is limitless, and therefore it will do whatever God wants. Do you understand, Ali?
I understood every sentence you said, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Go on.
I'm so sorry. We'll conclude tonight, and God willing, next week we'll continue.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.